What is going on, everyone? This is Miles with Windows Central Gaming, and welcome to the 54th episode of Xbox Chaturdays. Today, I am stoked to be joined once again by video game industry analyst and my good pal, Benji-Sales. Benji, how are you doing on this fine Saturday, my dude?
Doing good, man. Thanks for having me back. I'm so excited to be back, getting my return episode on Xbox Chaturdays. So thanks so much, man. We got a lot to talk about. Really excited to be back on.
Exactly. It's been too long. I'm stoked to have you on. Obviously, we have a ton to talk about. We're going to be talking about Microsoft earnings. We're going to be talking about a new Blizzard survival IP. We're going to be talking about a new Xbox exclusive. We're going to be talking about Call of Duty exclusivity, of course, the future of Sea of Thieves, and so much more. But first, before we get into all of that, for the folks who didn't catch the first episode, let everyone know who you are and where they can find you.
Yeah, I am Benji-Sales. I cover the video game industry. I kind of do it with a focus on like the sales side, business, data, social media metrics, all that kind of stuff. I do it online primarily through Twitter. So I'm just Benji-Sales on Twitter. And I also am on YouTube, Benji-Sales as well there. So I talk about gaming in general, of course. You know, I'm a huge gamer, love playing games, but kind of like my niche, my specialty is more that sales business data side.
Exactly. So if you're not following Benji, if you are interested in the numbers, seeing the figures, he does an amazing job curating basically the bullet points for a lot of industry buzz terms and kind of big events. And someone that I followed for a long time, even before I had him on the show, because he does amazing work and he's been at it for a long time, just independently doing his thing. So I appreciate what you do. Stoked to have you on for this episode. And something that I've been doing, since you came on with returning guests, is I want to play a little game with you, Ben. The game it's going to be hard, it's going to be tough, but ultimately it's going to be fun. So first, I want you to pick your 3 favorite video games and or franchises. The ones that are the most important to you.
All right. Well, this is tough for me because I'm one of those people that plays like every kind of genre. I play everything. So it's so tough to narrow it down, but there's a couple that do definitely stick out. Number one for me is probably going to be Halo. Halo has just always been, yeah, ever since really Halo 2. I came on Halo 2, not Halo CE. Of course, I've played Halo CE many times now, but my kind of big introduction to the franchise was actually Halo 2. So from that point on, Halo has just been like some of my best memories ever in gaming, whether it's playing through, all the campaigns, whether it was back in the day doing, System Link LAN parties
Yeah.
with my buddies on Halo 2 and Halo 3, everyone piling into a house and all of us connecting a bunch of Xboxes together and playing all night long. Halo is just it's one of the best franchises ever for me. At one point I was super into it to the point where I was reading all the novels and everything like that. I will admit I've kind of fallen off of the novel side of things, but I still play every single game like crazy, playing Halo Infinite all the time. So Halo is going to be up there for me for sure. I would also say Final Fantasy.
Nice.
Final Fantasy, I love RPGs in general, whether they're JRPGs or the Western RPG style. But ever since, again, I came in with Final Fantasy VII on the PlayStation 1. And, my cousin showed me that, and I'd never seen a game like that before. Like a big RPG like this, which at the time had cutting edge visuals, which if you go back and look at Final Fantasy VII now, it doesn't quite hold up on the visual side, but at the time it like blew my mind. So Final Fantasy has been one for me that I've just always played every generation. Huge Final Fantasy fan. And then a third one, this one is tough for me to pick a franchise. So I'm going to pick one game that stands out to me that whenever I played it, I thought this is a masterpiece, and that's Red Dead Redemption 2. That game, I know it's somewhat controversial in terms of the gameplay mechanics. Some people find it to be maybe a bit of a slog at times to play. But narratively, that game just hit me like very few other games ever have. Writing was tremendous. The world that they created over there at Rockstar. Red Dead Redemption 2 is going to be another one that stands as one of the best games ever made for me.
Beautiful list, a list that kind of encapsulates a bunch of different genres and different moments in time in the video game industry. And here's where things get a little interesting, Benji. So now what I want you to do with this list of 3 games and or franchises is I want you to pick one that is gone. It no longer exists in the world. No one gets to play it. And then I want you to pick one that still exists and everyone else except for you gets to play it.
Oh
What's
man.
that list look like?
Okay. If I had to get rid of one, as much as I just said it's one of the best games ever made, I'm gonna have to get rid of Red Dead just because it's a singular game, whereas the other two are franchises. So if I gotta knock one out, sorry Red Dead, you are a true masterpiece, but you're a single game.
You're gone.
So
You're out of here.
yeah, you're gone, you're gone. So I'd boot Red Dead out. Oh man. And if I could only everyone else can play it but me.
Uh huh. Still exists,
Oh
but you don't get to play it ever.
man, that is brutal. I'm, I'm gonna go. I think it'd be Final Fantasy because Halo is really special to me, and I've spent so much time in Halo multiplayer. It'd be really hard to give up never playing Halo again. So I think Final Fantasy would be the one everyone else would get to play but me. But that would be, I mean, it would be a stab in my heart.
Thanks for being a good sport. It is a tough game and one that I've kind of created, slightly mean-spiritedly, but when you start asking those really difficult questions about the games that are most important to you, you get some interesting responses. It's a game that my friends and
Mhm.
I started doing on just party chat late at night when we're done gaming and we're just like rambling. We started asking each
Mhm.
other that question. So I like to bring it to this show and kind of see where you're at with what you love the most. So appreciate you. I appreciate everyone who's tuning in live. Shout out to folks like Mr. Joanna Dark, Fonzarelli Gaming, Harjeet Chani, Sergeant Rake, a lot of amazing returning faces. If you are new to the show, we are live every Saturday at 12 p.m. Eastern Time. If you are listening to the show on audio services like Spotify and iTunes, like the show, review the show, all that good stuff. And we are going to jump straight into the first topic here, and a topic that I'm incredibly excited to have you in particular on the show, and that is the Microsoft Q2 earnings. So earlier
Yeah.
this week, Microsoft had their quarterly earnings call talking about the state of the business. And we're not really going to spend a ton of time with the overall state of Microsoft. Uh, you know, too long, don't read. They have a lot of money. They're making a lot of money. We're going to be focusing on the gaming side of things here, which we got some really interesting metrics on the success and the current state of Xbox as a division within Microsoft. So in this quarter, Microsoft generated $51.7 billion in gaming revenue, which is record breaking. This is the most that the Xbox division has ever made in a single quarter. So it's kind of staggering to put that in perspective because we look at the Activision Blizzard deal and we see $70 billion, and people like myself who will never make that in their entire life see that and go, that's an absurd amount of money. And then you see that Microsoft made almost 52 billion in gaming alone in one quarter, and that kind of puts everything into perspective. So Benji, I know you were kind of entrenched in the call and listening in. So I want to hear from you what the most interesting points about kind of this presentation and Microsoft's newfound focus in gaming is. What were the highlights in terms of, numbers, and what were the most interesting tidbits that you kind of pulled from this call?
Yeah, there was several really big takeaways for me. First of all, one thing I want to mention that's kind of like an overarching thing. I'm on every single one of these conference calls every quarter. I always listen in. I listen into all of them. So Activision, Ubisoft, EA, everybody. But I'm always on the Microsoft one as well. And to be honest, one thing that really stood out, I would say in particular this last quarter, um, was that oftentimes the Microsoft earnings calls, there's very little gaming talk. That has been the tradition for many, many, many years, simply because Microsoft's such an enormous company, right? They're making so much money off of things like Windows, off of things like cloud, off of things like, Teams and LinkedIn. So a lot of times, they're really focused on these more broad Microsoft type things than they are on the specifically within gaming. But one thing that I noticed on this call was Satya Nadella brought up gaming, I think more than I've ever heard him bring it up, to be honest. He went out of his way during kind of like their opening remarks to mention things about like Halo Infinite hitting 20 million players, talking about Forza Horizon 5 hitting 18 million players. You're seeing him specifically call out games, give us updates on their metrics. And then even throughout the call, even during the Q&A section of the call, even whenever investors were asking things about more broad topics like metaverse and acquisitions and things like this, and Satya would repeatedly come back to gaming. He kept talking about how gaming was going to be one of their biggest growth sectors for them. So that stood out to me in a big way. That's a great thing to see. And, if you're an Xbox fan, to see that the CEO is so behind the Xbox division in this way. So I would say that is one overarching part of this call that really stood out to me in a positive way. A couple other things that are really important. I had tweeted out about one, we're starting to get some real evidence that Microsoft's first party strategies are starting to pay off.
Hmm.
And one of those is going to be, in my opinion, you can see the growth in the content and services, going up into double digits year over year. So we saw 10% growth in the content and services segment. And what's really important about that, it's 10% growth, and that was with Call of Duty Vanguard and Battlefield 2042, kind of underperforming this year. Keep in mind, those are giant flagship third party games. So those do have a big impact on revenue with content and services because Microsoft does get a cut, being the platform holder for those games. So to see growth still happen to double digits with their first party and subscriptions to Game Pass in particular, that's a pretty good sign that that first party strategy, Halo, Forza, going on PC, going on Game Pass, you're really starting to see that pay off, in my opinion. And then one other thing I want to point out really quick is the hardware. Hardware actually performed better than they were forecasting. So that's good to see. So even though we're having these big, brutal shortages, in hardware, it's so hard to get a hold of a console right now. Microsoft did note that hardware actually outperformed what they were expecting it to. One thing that's really important is that Series S is really carrying Microsoft through this holiday. It's easier to manufacture than Series X is, so they're able to get more of these into stores. So Series S is putting in some work, and we saw that actually the Xbox Series X and S outsold PlayStation 5 in November and December in the US. So they actually outsold PlayStation 5 during the holiday period. So pretty exciting stuff for Xbox, yeah.
Yeah, incredible holiday performance for Xbox in terms of hardware and in terms of software, which is really impressive. You bring up some excellent points regarding games like Call of Duty Vanguard and Battlefield 2042, which yeah, that is a big portion of their revenue. I know a lot of people don't associate that. There have been
Hmm.
previous earnings calls where they talk about revenue being down because of Fortnite specifically. We've had
Yep.
earnings call where they're basically blaming their drop dip in revenue from Fortnite. Like that's
Yep.
how much weight some of these big third-party games can carry. So that is an interesting point. And we're seeing big milestones like you mentioned. Halo Infinite hitting 20 million players. Forza Horizon 5 hitting 18 million players. So the ease of access and the word of mouth, I think, is really kind of starting to take shape going into this generation. And there's going to be moving forward a lot more excitement and buzz around a lot of first-party Xbox release. We saw
Hmm.
Satya and that funny kind of call when Satya came out in his Halo Infinite hoodie and he's like, "What is up, gamers? We are all in on gaming." And a lot of people, we're looking at that maybe skeptically, saying, "Okay, is this some like PR thing? What does this mean? You're all in on gaming?" Like, sure, it's easy to say that, but what exactly does that look like? And then we have them come out very shortly after and spend close to $70 billion on Activision Blizzard, and that shows you that yes, we are in fact tangibly all in on gaming here. So one more quick question I want to ask, and this is just more of a general question: is what do you think are the biggest factors that contributed to Xbox's kind of big holiday success this past year?
I think it really is that Microsoft is really building a platform right now with Xbox that does feel, like targeted towards heavily gamers. That was one thing that really fell off with the early Xbox One generation. As we all know, and as Microsoft was very honest about in their Xbox On documentary, I think that's what it's called, Power On or
Power
something
on,
like that.
yeah.
Yeah. They were very honest about it, right? That hurt them very bad in the Xbox One generation, the way they revealed that console, the TV, 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 as we all know. That hurt the brand really bad. One thing I think that's really helping Microsoft right now is they are just positioning Xbox as a platform for gamers. Whether it's through acquisitions, we're going to get a ton of first party content out, whether it's games like Forza Horizon and Halo Infinite, which have been huge hits, whether it's Game Pass, which makes, playing games super accessible, PC day one. Just in general, that it feels like they're building an awesome ecosystem, and I think that's really starting to pay off. This is the kind of thing that takes a little while to get going. They announced a lot of this stuff a while back, right? Game Pass has been around for a while. Games have been starting to hit PC for a while. But with an ecosystem, it's not just like usually an overnight change. Like, wow, you weren't necessarily as successful here, and the next day, boom, billions, baby. It takes time to build that kind of thing, especially when you have really difficult competitors in the market like Nintendo and Sony. And I think that their strategies are really starting to pay off. And I think a lot of people this generation are going to get Xboxes, even let's say if they're primarily a Nintendo gamer or a PlayStation gamer. I really think you'll see a lot of people buy Xboxes as well due to Game Pass and that first party lineup. So it's looking great for them, to be honest.
Yeah, early 2017, 2016, we kind of started seeing the future of Xbox taking shape, and Phil Spencer and a lot of that team came out and basically sorry, talked about their plans for the future of Xbox. And a lot of people were skeptical. A lot of people heard this and said, okay, well, obviously they're in the position where they have to say these things to kind of shift the kind of narrative that was happening with Xbox One, not focusing on gamers, not having great games, not having the most, you know, capable hardware. And then the launch of the Xbox One X almost served as like kind of the soft relaunch of that gen for them. And that was
I
a
agree.
good kind of kicking off point for Game Pass, for the fact that the company is investing in hardware. They want to make sure that they have the best hardware on the market. They want to have the best value on the market. And even though there weren't a ton of quote unquote bangers, as people like to throw around, Xbox was laying that foundation early on to kind of set the tone. And it's been really exciting to see all of those promises start to come to life now in 2020 and into 2021 and 2022. We're starting to see what that really means for Xbox as a platform, and Microsoft obviously sees the potential there. And they are, like we said, going from spending next to no money on the Xbox One generation to spending absurd amounts of money. The most expensive acquisition ever for Microsoft is in the gaming division. That wasn't going to happen
Yeah,
6 years ago. There was no
no chance.
world where that was happening 6 years ago. And here we are. So they've really turned things around in a humongous way. And like you touched on the gamers, it wasn't a platform for gamers. And gamers are very protective. They're
Yeah.
they are very passionate. They're very protective, and a lot of them can see through BS. So I think that's kind of, when you have a figure like Phil Spencer at the helm, and you see Phil Spencer online every single night. Like I was on the other night, and he's just grinding some Rainbow Six Extraction by himself. So when you see somebody who is entrenched in gaming, loves gaming, I think that adds a lot of kind of credibility to the strategy. And that's why for me personally, I can look at someone like Phil Spencer and I can say, all right, I trust the vision here. I trust that
Mhm.
you are making these moves because you just want to make some kick-ass games. I'm sure behind the scenes, Phil Spencer's like, oh, dude, okay. All right, I want this game to happen, so I'm going to try to, push this money to make it happen. And that gets me excited because if I
Yeah,
was
for
in his
sure.
position, I'd be picking up the phone, calling random studios every day, be like, "Hey,
Oh yeah.
what's up? What are you working on? Do you want to make this? Because if you want to make this, I will give you this pile of money. Just let me know. Just let me know."
Yeah. No, absolutely. I agree on all points. I agree completely. So leadership seems on point there, and you're really seeing the business side start to pay off now. Absolutely.
It's exciting. It's an exciting time for the industry as a whole because when you have a tech giant, if you will, like Microsoft, spending this kind of money, it sets the tone that okay, gaming there's money to be made in gaming. So there's gonna be a lot more investments in the gaming. There's gonna be clearly a lot more acquisitions, and again,
Yeah.
consolidation is a separate issue that we'll save for another day. There are concerns there, but people are seeing that if you put out good games, people are going to spend money to play
Oh
those
yeah.
games. And if you keep putting out content and things they like in those good games, they will continue to keep giving you money for that. It's a wild concept, but I'm glad to see that that is kind of what's winning out now in the current state of the
Mhm.
industry.
Yep. Yeah, and content is becoming king. We saw this on the subscription side for films and streaming shows. Like content is so important. Whether you're Disney Plus, whether you're Netflix, whether you're Amazon Prime, you're seeing these companies spend exorbitant amounts of money, huge amounts of money to make these streaming movies and these streaming shows, and that's because it's the most important way to get a big subscriber base. Netflix constantly releasing new content, Disney throwing at you, Marvel and Star Wars, and
Hmm.
on and on and on. You're seeing the Lord of the Rings show is going to be the most expensive television series ever created. Like as of now, it's going to be the most expensive show ever with the reported budget. And you're seeing that start to happen within gaming, and you're seeing Microsoft make these big acquisitions, you're seeing Sony start to make acquisitions as well, and a big part of that really is that subscription space, because while a lot of people maybe don't realize it quite yet, subscription spend is going to become astronomically important in this industry over the next 5 to 10 years.
Yes, a lot of people kind of talk about, will Game Pass raise its price? Will other players get in the space? And there will absolutely be more publishers that experiment with these subscription things. We've seen
Mhm,
Ubisoft dive in, we've seen EA dive in, but there will be more as more and more people get accustomed to that. Right now,
mhm,
it's a newer idea in video gaming. It's not a newer idea in general,
mhm,
but as more people kind of understand the value and how it works, I think a lot of those kind of hesitations and fears will subside, and you'll see a lot of people comfortable with subscribing.
mhm,
And as you touched on, yeah, content is the new war. I forget who, somebody
mhm.
posted some inflammatory like console wars are dead. Now it's a war of content or something edgy like that on social media. Um,
Mhm.
but it's true.
Yeah, it
Content
is.
is going to be what is the most important thing to pull someone into your platform. It's no
Mhm,
longer about the box per se anymore. Obviously, having a capable machine is important. I don't think that's going away anytime soon. But what's becoming more important is having those games everyone's talking about. And we saw that with Forza Horizon 5. We saw that with Halo Infinite, where my Twitter timeline, people who I've never seen mention any racing game ever in their life, they're talking
mhm,
about how they love Forza. And they're sharing like
mhm.
videos of them playing Forza. And that stuff carries weight because that word of mouth, that kind of engagement, like Netflix, when everyone's playing it, when everyone's watching a show, you're more inclined to check it out. Tiger
Yeah.
King. We were all there. We were all in the trenches in
We all
Tiger King.
saw
Just yeah. Was it the best show? Not really, but everyone was talking about it, and
Yeah.
I think that's the power of a subscription service. Is it breaks down that single high price barrier to entry for a lot of video games.
It's a huge marketing element. Honestly, probably the most powerful form of marketing across the board in any industry, especially entertainment, I would say, is word of mouth, right? Like it
Hmm.
is just about as powerful of a marketing tool as you could ever get. You could have the dopest trailers, you could have, the coolest looking box art or whatever, but what really accelerates a game or a show or a movie is that word of mouth, that high quality
Hmm.
content. And I really think you're starting to see Microsoft fire on those cylinders now. I thought Forza Horizon 5 was excellent. I thought Halo Infinite was excellent. You have to count something like Psychonauts 2 in there. Yes, it was
Oh yeah.
multi-platform, but that's a first-party studio now. That was an excellent game. So, yeah, content, it does sound inflammatory to say that's the next war, but there's some truth to it. Having high quality content is going to be so important to pull people into, whether it's buying your consoles, whether it's subscribing to Game Pass, even using things like cloud. So yeah, that's going to be a huge priority moving forward, which makes these acquisitions make a lot of sense.
You got to keep a steady flow of high quality content, and if you have a huge stable of talented teams under your banner, you can ensure. That's really the only way that you can ensure a steady flow is having them kind of under your banner. But we're also seeing Xbox Game Studios Publishing kind of supplement that as well because they understand that they're not going to buy every studio in the world. Like that's not their goal. They have no intention of doing that. But if you get more developers excited about Xbox, um, chances are more people are going to want to work with Xbox. When we start seeing some of these kind of publishing games release, um, I'm sure there's gonna be a lot of money, a lot of interest, and we're gonna see a lot of buzz from other developers kind of curious to see what Microsoft is offering that maybe previous publishers weren't.
Mm. Yep, yep, and we're starting to get some teases for sure about what's coming from some of the publishing
Oh
side.
yeah, we'll be talking some more about a couple teases coming up here. I got to give a quick shout out to the 175 people hanging with us today. If you are enjoying the show, hit the like button, share it out. Let's see how big we can get this party. And most importantly, you got to feed YouTube's algorithm. It's insatiable. All right, guys. I'm sorry. All right, so I want to transition into another kind of conversation that stemmed from this earnings call and stemmed from the amount of money that Microsoft is making and the announcement of the games with gold for February of 2020. And it's kind of become a meme at this point, but I feel like every time games with gold is announced, there are a huge amount of people on Twitter complaining, saying, "Boo, these games are bad. I'm not excited about these games." There's all this negative energy and negative sentiment surrounding games with gold, and I want to have a broad conversation about, the current state of games with gold and the current state of Xbox Live Gold as a service. There's been a lot of people saying, passionately that games with gold needs to die. It needs to go away. They need to cancel the program. So before I share my thoughts, I want to hear kind of where you stand with games with gold as it currently is.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of truth to people that have that opinion. I will say it feels nowadays fairly redundant with Game Pass being a thing, especially because you can really see the priority of where Microsoft's choosing to spend. Clearly so much investment on the Game Pass side, whereas the monthly games with gold, it's pretty clear they're spending a vastly smaller sum of money on those, games. So it does feel super weird because here's the thing, we're getting pretty close to the point now where I would say, and we don't know exact numbers because Microsoft has not released the exact number of Xbox Live Gold subscribers in quite some time. So we don't know exactly how many people are just specifically subscribed to Gold, but my hunch looking at the numbers is that the vast bulk of people that are subscribed to Game Pass are also subscribed to Gold. It
Mm-hmm.
really seems like that's pretty clear now, especially with there being 25 million subscribers now for Game Pass. Maybe you're getting a few million more that are Gold only and not Game Pass, but it can't be that high of a number. So it feels especially redundant in that case because these people are already getting a huge, really high quality library with Game Pass. And yet with Gold, they're getting these games that I suspect most people are never playing. So it does feel weird. I'm not 100% sure what the answer is. I don't know if it's you scrap Gold. I think eventually that you do that. And I think Microsoft will. I just don't know if they're waiting for a magic number of Game Pass subscribers before they do that. That's my hunch. I don't know that for sure. But yeah, the games with Gold has definitely taken a big quality hit from where it used to be. That is absolutely for sure. And Game Pass is the clear reason why.
It's especially frustrating to me with how forward thinking the Xbox platform is right now with their vision of this connected ecosystem between PC, console, and mobile. The X games with gold and Xbox Live Gold in general just feels like this weird relic from their past that they just seem unwilling to ditch right now. And I understand from a business perspective, they probably have a huge number of subscribers that's guaranteed revenue every single month. And for their investors and for the business, they're not gonna just cancel that to be cool and nice for us. I
Mhm.
do understand that, but at the same time, right now, Games with Gold really only serves as a paywall for online multiplayer. Like you can ignoring the games, like the games are sort of whatever. That's like a bonus perk to this program, but the program exists to gate you from playing online multiplayer unless you pay the subscription. And with Xbox kind of having this connected ecosystem, that feels so antiquated. It feels so out of touch and out of place in what they've been pushing. Because Sea of Thieves, primary example, the one I always use. I can go on my PC, I can play Sea of Thieves right now. I can use Xbox Party Chat with Sea of
Mhm.
Thieves on my PC, and I don't have to pay anything. That
Yep.
exact same experience is $10 a month if you pay per month, $60 a year if we want to be technical. But you have to pay for the exact same experience on console, and it serves as this weird console tax. So that in of itself is contrary to Microsoft's plans of connecting everyone across different devices. And I see people say like, well, it's the console's cheaper, and what the console's $500. the console is still expensive.
Yeah.
It's unfair to ask probably your more dedicated audience, honestly, to invest in their proprietary hardware and then have to pay a supplemental fee to pay online when someone who on PC can just buy that game, play that game, and that's it. There is no other fee associated with that. So to me, gold is this really weird relic that needs to go away. And I have to feel like they are just waiting for Game Pass to hit some sort of milestone before they ditch it. Um,
That's my guess.
do you have any rough estimates as to what they're looking for? We know Game Pass is over 25 million. What are they looking for? When are they going to get rid of this program? Because there's so much negative sentiment surrounding it that I don't understand why it currently exists.
Yeah. I Part of me could legitimately see Microsoft dropping gold this generation. For every point that you just hit, it really does feel counterintuitive to everything that Microsoft says nowadays. It's really about your ecosystem everywhere, ease of access. Well, I mean, your platform itself has a barrier that other devices don't have.
Uh huh.
Which does feel, if like you said, it feels super weird, right? If you're going to play this on PC, you ain't spending Xbox Live Gold. So it does feel just super weird. I suspect, and this is a total guess, but I could see them bringing that down this generation at some point. What that number is going to be, my guess is as well that Game Pass is probably they're waiting on a milestone. The number that has rumbled around before about like a long-term Game Pass objective is that 50 million
Hmm.
subscribers number.
Yeah.
I think everybody that's heard any rumblings in the industry have heard that number floated before. I don't know if that is an exact number that's part of their forecast for dropping gold or anything like that. That's just kind of one of the rumblings. That's a milestone that's looked at internally, is their road to get there. So I don't know. I think gold probably does go away this gen, just with the way that they're rolling out their strategies. But when that will be, it's hard to know.
Yeah, it really is. I can't imagine that it will continue for much longer, because we saw the controversy with them trying to, raise the price of Xbox Gold from
Yeah, that
basically
was a huge mistake.
60 a year to 120 a year. And then we had people speculating that they were doing that as a bad PR move to make it so that gold was unappealing and to kind of quote unquote force people to sign up for Game Pass Ultimate because of the value proposition. I don't know if there's any sort of truth to that, but that's what that move did. A lot of people saw that and said, "Oh, you're purposely tanking gold so that we
Yeah.
sign up for Game Pass." And then people were, upset that they felt they were being forced to sign up for Game Pass. And there was some kind of controversy surrounding that. I don't know that that's the reality. I don't think that that's the reality. Phil Spencer has publicly come out and said that we want Game Pass to serve as an option for our customers, not the primary way that everyone engages with the platform. So I still think that that's true. I don't think that's the case, but that's kind of the optics that these things are creating with gold. And I haven't seen a lot of positive press regarding games with gold in a long, long time.
Oh yeah, it's been a long time. I couldn't even tell you the last time. It's been that long. Very long time.
And yeah, so I just wanted to kind of have a conversation with you and the audience here about, where we stand with gold and what the future probably looks like. But I would love, again, I understand that they are a business, they're trying to make money. I don't mind supplemental things being, added with a subscription, like cloud streaming. I get that. Like being able to stream games to your phone. I get that they're charging extra for that, and I like that that's included with Game Pass Ultimate. I think
Yep.
they should find ways to supplement the value of like Game Pass Ultimate, for example, as a way to fill that gap. We look at
Mhm.
I know a lot of people complain about Nintendo Online, um, and there are definitely things to complain about. It needs some work, but at the same
Oh yeah.
time, how is Nintendo leading the space right now when it comes to being able to play retro games? No, play Xbox
Mm,
and PlayStation don't offer a way for you to go and play retro games online with your friends. How is
mm,
Nintendo the only one doing that? So
mm,
I would love to see Xbox kind of take that approach. Go back, revisit some of your classic games, even if it's through backwards compatibility, and make it so I can play those games online with friends if I have the
mm,
subscription. Supplement the value, really sell it so it's not like, oh, well, you have to have this, so you're going to pay for it, because that's where it currently stands. Is you want to play
mhm,
games online? Sorry, if you play on an Xbox console, that's the way it is. We'll make exceptions here and there for free to play games, but any game that you buy, you have to pay to play, and again, I'm just really over that. And I know it's been this long running thing. It's not an Xbox only thing. We see PlayStation doing it. We see Nintendo doing it. Um, but again, if Xbox wants to be this forward thinking, play anywhere platform, they really need to take that to heart. It can't just be this marketing approach anymore.
Yeah.
For me, I think it's unacceptable that that is their marketing approach, but they have this barrier within their own ecosystem.
Yeah, and I think the reason you're seeing Nintendo and PlayStation get less heat for, still requiring online to play online than comparison to Microsoft, because you brought them up. I think the prime reason is what we've been talking about. It's because Microsoft is selling their ecosystem is so forward thinking and
Mm-hmm.
open, and whereas Sony and Nintendo, they're not really selling their ecosystem that way, right? So they can kind of right now in terms of optics still get away with it, and people just don't really say much about it because they're still really a traditional ecosystem setup, whereas Microsoft's more about, hey, get it on your mobile phone or your tablet or your PC or your console. So Microsoft, it just puts a lot more focus on them whenever you have a paywall for online, because you're like, hey, this seems counterintuitive, to the other things that you're saying. So that's kind of why the other two I think are a bit floating under the radar while Microsoft's getting some heat on gold. But long term, it just doesn't feel like it makes sense for gold to be there.
Yeah, I totally agree because I've seen a lot of people say, well, it's not fair. Microsoft is being held to a different standard than PlayStation and Nintendo. And to that, I say Microsoft set this standard. They are the ones that have set this standard for themselves, and I'm going to hold them to that. If you tell me that this is your plan and this is your strategy, you got to do it. You can't just tell me you're going to do it and not do it. Because again, Xbox mostly has done a really good job,
Yep.
delivering on their promises. And this of everything that's going on with their platform that's exciting and interesting, this is the one area where they just feel anchored to the past in a way that I think is hurting their true vision for this platform. So again, I understand, PlayStation and Nintendo are more, like you said, traditional, and I'm not saying that that's right. I don't, I'm not saying that, oh, it's fine that they do it and Xbox can't. That's not necessarily what I'm saying. But
Yeah.
if Xbox is going to be this kind of look into the future and this inclusive place for everyone to play, regardless of where you're playing, um, they got to deliver on that. They just
Yeah.
have to.
I think you're spot on.
I got to give a quick shout out to the 240 people hanging with us on Xbox Chaturdays today. Again, if you are new to the show, we are live every Saturday at 12 p.m. Eastern Time. If you are digging the show, hit the like button, share it out. I'm going to get to some super chats here real quick. First and foremost, we have Silent Cipher coming in with an excellent super chat to give me some shameless self promotion here. So great to be with you this morning. Fear on Tap episode 1 was awesome. Thanks for the
Woo.
great Chatterday content as well as the new endeavor. So since Brian set it up, so I'm gonna take the opportunity to talk about my side project real quick, and I'll keep it short. It's so I love horror movies, horror shows, horror games. I don't like to bore everyone here with a lot of it because I know not everyone is super into horror. But if you
Mhm.
are a horror fan, I have a new podcast dedicated to horror content called Fear on Tap. You can follow us on social media at Fear on Tap. And yeah, that's all I'll say. If you care about horror, check it out. If not, I won't bring it up anymore.
No, dude, that's awesome. I saw that. I'm also a horror fan, so that is super sweet. That's
Yes,
awesome. I saw you were doing that.
as a horror nerd, I'm stoked about it. The show's fun. I have an amazing co-host over there. So yeah, if you're curious, check it out. It's a little more PG-13 to R-rated than this show. So just as a heads up there. Super chat from William Karana, who says, "Does Benji know what Arcane Leon is making? Do you know?
I can't
I mean,
talk about
obviously you
Arcane.
can't say, but so
I'm gonna choose the pass. Thank you for the super chat to the channel, but I yeah, I can't talk too much about Arcane.
our super chat from Matt Cheeshbone, who says Xbox Gold seems counter to Xbox's inclusive play anywhere message. You need to make online free to play, like they said, and ditch gold. Matt's on the same page. I think you and I are on the same page, and Matt's on the same page here. I know I've seen people kind of sort of defend strategy, um, and that it is what it is. You're entitled to your opinion, but I think with Xbox, That's not the long-term plan for them. All right, Shabs, the Inevitable says, and this is an interesting point that a lot of people in the US, Canada specifically, I don't think really understand, is that a lot of countries don't have xCloud. So there are,
Yeah.
when you look at the value proposition of an Xbox Game Pass Ultimate, um, there is an xCloud in certain countries. So I've had people reach out to me and say, like, hey, for me, Xbox Gold feels especially mean spirited because I don't even get the perks of something like Game Pass Ultimate. So there is no
Yeah.
way for me to get a better deal on Gold. I just have to pay this amount and deal with the fact that I don't get everything that other people are getting. So I think that's definitely worth bringing up.
No, that's a great point. And I think that's going to be one of Microsoft's big challenges this generation in a good way is I think they really need to expand their presence and the things they offer in markets outside of like the US, Canada, UK. That's going to be their biggest growth opportunity this generation. Getting xCloud into more markets, getting their marketing better in more markets, all that kind of stuff.
Absolutely. Super chat from Harjeet Chani, who says Game Pass Ultimate is a no-brainer when you include gold. If they take away gold, Alt needs more to have players sub to that tier. Add Ubisoft Plus, DLC, etc. Yes, Game Pass Ultimate again is a much better value proposition. And right now, I really, and this isn't to be super critical of Xbox in an unfair way, but I think gold being bundled in with there is more of a marketing. It is more of like, hey, we're adding to the value proposition. You get this, 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 and gold. So they're making you feel like you're getting a better deal for something that, in my opinion, they shouldn't be charging you for. But I do understand that. I do agree that they need to fill that, and they need to. If they are going to take gold away, I want them to have something else that's exciting for Xbox Game Pass Ultimate. Let's say they ditch games with gold, but they leverage Xbox Game Pass perks. Why not just put free games in the ultimate perks? So that way, instead of games with gold as we know it, instead of, in addition to the DLC and other things that we get with perks, throw a couple games in there. Use that as a way to supplement the
Yeah.
Game Pass or the Game Pass catalog with some games that you quote unquote get to own. I think that's a way to do it.
Yeah, yeah. I think there's a lot they can play around with still in terms of tiers and stuff. I really don't think we're at the end game of like there's only going to be two tiers. There's Game Pass and Ultimate. I really think we'll see more options in the future.
Another super chat from Matt here says, apart from cost, what's the point in having gold instead of Game Pass? Right now, the point of gold is to make it so you can't play online only if you have an Xbox console. That's the point of gold,
Hmm.
and that's it. That's all it serves as. Again, the games with gold was the supplemental thing that came after the fact to give you free games as a way to say, okay, see, it's not that bad. It's not that bad that you have to pay to play online because we're giving you free games. So yes, gold as it stands is a paywall for online multiplayer, and that's it.
Yeah.
And then Nick coming in with some hype. Less than 1 month until Elden Ring. Can't wait for it. Oh, dude, I won't go on a tangent about Elden Ring, but
Oh, I
I'm
can't wait.
tempted. I'm tempted, dude, because Elden Ring, ooh,
10 out
ooh.
of 10 hype. 10 out of 10 hype.
Most hype I've been for a game in a long, 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 long time. So,
Yeah, I
yes,
can't freaking wait.
less than 1 month. Let's go. And speaking of hype games, we got to talk about a couple newish games that were officially announced and kind of leaked this week. And first, we're going to
Mm,
start with a brand new Activision or a brand new Blizzard IP. Forgive me. So Blizzard, in an effort to kind of recruit folks this week, put out a post saying that they are working on a survival game. So we don't
mhm,
really have any details beyond that, unfortunately, right now. But Blizzard has come out into the world and said, this is going to be our first new IP since Overwatch. We are making it a survival game. If you want to join this team, here's some links. Let's go. So, Benji, I got to ask, are you big into survival games in general?
It hasn't been a genre that I've like super clicked with. I've played some that have elements of that, like State of Decay has some of those elements to a degree, not to a huge factor, but a little bit. But like stuff like Valheim and stuff like that. I haven't gotten super into the genre. I will tell you though, I am very excited to see Blizzard's take on that genre. Blizzard tends to, as many issues as they have had in recent years, Blizzard tends to take genres and make them feel pretty special and different. Overwatch stands out to me. They took a first person shooter and made it feel really, really different than most other games on the market. There are some comparables like Paladins and stuff, but like for the most part, Overwatch feels so radically different than most FPS. So I'm very excited and interested to see what they can do with this genre. I'm very stoked for this. Yes.
Yes. Okay. See, I'm a huge survival guy. I've seen a lot of people kind of get excited about a new Blizzard IP and then see that it's a survival game and kind of be like, "Oh, that's not what I wanted from Blizzard." But for me, oh yeah, let as someone who played Ark year 1 when it was in it looked disgusting. It ran like trash. I still put hundreds and hundreds of hours into Ark because I like that formula. The kind of slow progress, you die, you have to do all of it over again. I'm kind of a masochist in that way. Like I like to torture myself, and Ark was very much that. So I've played Ark, Grounded. I'm a huge fan of Grounded. I love what Obsidian is doing with that title. So I'm really excited to kind of see that one evolve. And the idea of a Blizzard take on survival, like you said, Blizzard has done a really good job taking a genre that's established, and if they're entering that space, they usually do a really good job introducing new, exciting ideas. So for
Hmm.
me, I'm definitely really excited about this as well. And I want to have a kind of a sub conversation regarding this because obviously there's the news of the Xbox acquisition. And I've been very vocal on my current stance with the quality and the how I feel about Activision Blizzard over the last few
Yeah.
years. And it bums me out that I didn't care. I wasn't excited in the least for Overwatch 2 because it's just been this development hellscape. They haven't been sure what to do with it. I felt that they didn't really even support Overwatch 1 in the way that they could have.
One of the
um
biggest mistakes ever in gaming history.
yeah, a war
Not exaggerating. One of the biggest errors I've ever seen in the history of this industry.
yeah, the support, the post support for Overwatch was such a kind of embarrassment compared to everything else that you saw in that space. And that made me really bummed. And then instead of supporting that further, they say, okay, we're going to put out Overwatch 2. You can still play with Overwatch 1 players, but there's going to be a PvE mode. And then instead of supporting our previous game, we're going to stop all support and focus on Overwatch 2. And then it's been years where Overwatch has just been in limbo. And
Yep.
that has made me far less excited for Overwatch 2. Warcraft 3, one of the greatest strategy games of all time. They announced that they're doing this kind of remaster that comes out and is one of the biggest, ugliest flops of recent years. People hated it, and for fair reason. It was lazy. It was kind of the most cynical elements of a remaster. And then we had Diablo 4, and Diablo is one of my favorite franchises of all time. And when I can't even be excited about Diablo 4, your company has failed. Your company has failed. And that's kind of where I've been with Activision Blizzard. I haven't been excited about their future. So I have to ask you, because I've been thinking about this a lot, does a world post Xbox acquisition make you more excited about the possibilities of a new Blizzard IP?
Absolutely. So this is going to get probably a little controversial depending on people's stances with consolidation and things like that. I am of the opinion that in this particular case, Microsoft acquiring Activision Blizzard could potentially be the best thing to happen to this company in many, many, many years. So many of the issues that we're talking about, whether it's what happened with Overwatch, I still play Overwatch almost every day. I'm a huge Overwatch fan. And you want to talk about disgruntled? We haven't had new content for Overwatch in years. The people like me that are still sticking around, we're just like, we're
Please,
still.
please, sir, can I have something?
I mean, I'll take a map even. Just give me anything at this point. There's just no content. So, I love Blizzard games in general, but so many of their issues that you're bringing up, specifically have to do with the insane turnover rate that has happened there. So many, that's one thing that's really come out, through all of these allegations and the Bobby Kotick drama and all of these things that have come out is they've had such high turnover in so many of their teams. So a lot of these issues start to make sense whenever you consider they can't hold on to people. It's
Mhm.
really hard to keep a development cycle healthy whenever people are just coming in the door and then coming out the door repeatedly. We've seen so many executives and leaders just come in and then leave, come in and then leave. So The acquisition potentially. Now we here's the thing. Microsoft has to stick to their promise that they're really going to improve the working conditions here, that they're really going to change the culture. If those sorts of things do happen though, it makes me very excited for Blizzard's future because I still think there's so much talent in that company, but the culture there has really damaged them. So I'm very excited for this IP. I think this acquisition could be a giant net positive in the long run. So yeah, I'm really excited. It's going to take a lot of work. This ain't something that's going to change overnight. I will say one other thing really quick. One thing that makes me also excited for this IP is I saw Jason Schreier put out a tweet, and he said that even the most disgruntled Blizzard employees have told him that this game and this team is special. So even the people that are most fed up at Blizzard have said apparently behind the scenes that the team making this and the game project they're making is really awesome. So if even you're really disappointed and upset, employees are praising it, that's a pretty encouraging sign.
Yeah, you bring up an excellent point with that. I thought that note was very interesting because with everything going on, and we've seen a lot of employees kind of speak out about the situation and been very vocal about it. And so for them, despite all of this, to look at this particular project and see the potential and see what it could be, that has me really excited. And I want to believe that this acquisition for the employees of Activision Blizzard will be a net positive. And again, I've talked about this on the podcast. I've talked about this on Twitter, but I am expecting a lot from Microsoft here. If you are
Yep.
going to spend close to $70 billion on an acquisition, I feel like it is your obligation to ensure better working conditions for these employees. And if
Yep.
that's not the reality, I am going to be very upset with this. And
Yep.
so I believe that ultimately this will be a good thing. And I'm kind of on the same page. I think with how everything was going at Activision Blizzard in terms of being this Call of Duty machine, forced to just crank out a Call of Duty every year. All of these amazingly talented studios being kind of shuttered or forced to be support studios for Call of Duty and the like. Um, Warcraft 3 launching in a terrible state, Diablo 2 even launching in a terrible state. Like, they have just been putting out games to put out games, and they haven't had the flexibility to ensure that they launch in a state that makes them happy because of all the pressure from investors. They have to hit these deadlines, they have to make this money. And when you're part of that enormous giant pile of money that is Microsoft, there isn't as much pressure to make sure that this, comes out at this quarter no matter what. We are
Yeah,
putting this
absolutely.
out no matter what. And we saw that with Halo. Halo
Yep.
was poised to be the launch title for the Xbox Series X. People were stoked to have a new Halo launching with a brand new Xbox console. That would have been a huge deal. That would have been a
Huge.
huge deal. And I'm sure there were some passionate conversations about, do we delay it or do we not? But they ultimately made the right call, gave it an extra year. And in the case of Halo Infinite, we got a game that I wasn't expecting to see have this in their game of the year kind of conversation. So that's a
Yeah,
huge
absolutely.
testament to how Microsoft is enabling these teams to make the best games possible and ship the games in a state that is not embarrassing.
Yeah. And I mean, it says something whenever, being acquired, if you're at any company, any industry, that's always a little nerve wracking because you're like, hey, our company is being acquired. We don't know how, this change is going to be. It says something whenever a lot of employees at Activision Blizzard, I saw tweeting about this and being excited about it. That, that's pretty interesting that even the employees there are viewing this as probably a net positive. So that shows you, in this particular case, I really think that this is going to play out good in the long run, as long as Microsoft does the required work. So, yep.
Yeah, I want to be optimistic about it. Again, there are concerns, and I'm not trying to skirt anyone's concerns because I've seen people bring up interesting points about consolidation and this fear that if a company gets to a certain point where they have this large share, that there is no incentive for them to keep making exciting games and keep pushing the boundaries. Like, Microsoft is in an interesting position because they're not in first. They are working hard to try to get into first. I'm sure that is ultimately their goal, but they're not. So there's this
Yeah.
this this passion, this drive to do it, and that's why they're making all these big moves. And then I've seen people say, well, what happens when they do get in first? Are they going to become complacent? Are they going to, kind of go back to their old ways? And we'll just have to kind of wait and see.
Yeah.
Again, I trust in the current leadership of Xbox. I don't think that's the case per se, but I'm not going to completely downplay anyone's concerns in that regard.
Yeah. I really trust Phil, Sarah Bond. I think they have a pretty amazing team over there right
Yeah.
now. So it's easy online to be cynical and to be, constantly questioning and doubting things. I don't think Microsoft's current leadership have given any reason to really doubt, though, that they would pivot to hardcore anti-consumer or something just because they got into first place. Um, you might have those concerns in the past with past leadership. If Don Matrick was still there, I think you might be a little nervous. But I think I trust people like Phil, Sarah Bond. I think they're moving in a great direction.
Yeah, I think that's something that, regardless of if Xbox is your preferred platform or not, they've done a really amazing job getting the right people in the right places. Yes, Phil Spencer, Sarah Bond, Matt Booty, a lot of these people are clearly very passionate about video games, as a medium, not just the business. Obviously, they are a huge company and they are trying to make money.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of folks within that company that just love games and don't want to live in a world where the video game industry is destroyed or bad. And so I think that's exciting that, a lot of these big acquisitions, in my eyes, aren't made for nefarious reasons, because we
Yeah.
could look at Microsoft as the villain, as this big just blob of money that's just sucking up everyone and everything. And if they have the resources to be that, let's be
Yeah.
real. And I think that's where some people's concerns come from. If they wanted to be this evil entity, they could. And we have to hope and trust that that's not the world we're going to live in.
For sure. And they're not close to consolidating the whole market yet. Not even close.
No, no. There's some interesting kind of graphs and pie charts that kind of break down their share. And yeah, we talked about this on the last episode, but far from a monopoly, and there are definitely other players with a bigger piece of that gaming pie.
Hmm.
Before we jump into the next game we're going to be talking about, I'm going to get to some super chats here. We got Harjeet Chani coming in saying, no Dying Light 2 in Game Pass. Xbox, we now need Elden Ring in Game Pass. So this has kind of been a running joke on our show, because we've talked about the possibility of Elden Ring coming to Game Pass, and how hype that would be for Game Pass to get one of the most hype. Whether you care about this game or not, it is objectively one of the most hype games of this year,
Yeah.
and how huge that would be for Game Pass. So I'll just ask you: is there any world where you see Elden Ring coming to Game Pass? Is that even a possibility to you?
At launch, no, and that's strictly because the pre-order numbers I'm seeing are astra freaking nomical. So don't get me wrong, I am of the opinion that oftentimes Game Pass doesn't necessarily hurt game sales. I think we've seen a lot of evidence of that. There was
Yeah.
maybe a couple of games where you do question maybe if there was some, cannibalism, but I think a lot of games there's a lot of evidence there's not. In this one particular case, though, I think From knows what they have on their hands, and they don't want to give any sort of option other than going out and spending money on that game. Put it this way, I was optimistic about Elden Ring all along, and the current metrics I'm seeing looks like it's going to completely obliterate what I thought it was going to. We could be looking at,
Hmm.
I mean, I don't want to go too crazy, but we could be looking at potentially one of the biggest single player Steam launches of all time.
Yeah, I've had some people kind of,
I mean, the numbers this is going to do on Steam, incredible.
I've had people downplay to me like how Elden Ring will perform, looking at past From Software
Oh no.
titles and sales. I've thrown out some figures, but I'm curious to hear your thoughts now that you've dove into some of these Elden Ring kind of pre-order numbers.
I mean,
If you're throwing a figure on the first weekend and then the first year of sales, what does Elden Ring look like across all platforms
okay.
for you?
Okay,
Again, we're not going to
so
hold you to it, but if you're throwing
yeah.
out estimates here.
Yeah. So some comparables we have to look at are games like Sekiro and Dark Souls 3. Obviously, those are going to
Mhm.
be the two that you look at because they're the most recent From games. Dark Souls 3 ended up doing over 10 million. Sekiro over 5 million. So here's the thing. If I had to make a total just guess right now, opening weekend, here's the thing. This game will be big on consoles. There's zero doubt about it. The thing that makes this such a wild card is PC. I mean, the numbers it looks like this is going to do on PC are kind of shocking, to be honest with you. Put it this way. Let me pull up something for you really quick.
Let's get some juicy
So yeah,
numbers here,
let's
dude.
get some data really quick.
Let's get some
All right.
data.
So Dark Souls 3 is the biggest all-time peak ever on Steam for a From game. That did 129,000 concurrent players on Steam. I won't be surprised if this doubles that. I won't be
Same,
surprised if it doubles Dark Souls 3. So
same, big same.
we could be looking at well over 200,000 concurrent players on this game. We'll have to see. Don't lock this in yet, but it won't be a surprise to me if it doubles Dark Souls. So we could be seeing. I mean, it's going to do millions opening weekend. Opening year, I'll tell you what, opening year, I think it does over 10 million in a year. I really do. I really think it'll do over 10 million in a year, which would be the fastest selling From game of all time by far. So I think we look at potentially 10 million plus in its first year. Opening weekend will be tough. The big debate right now is which is going to be bigger, that or Horizon Forbidden West. That is such a tough question because even though Horizon's on one platform, Horizon Forbidden or Zero Dawn was a massive seller.
Yeah, it
I
sold
I
really
was
well.
I was always against the idea that Elden Ring could launch bigger than Horizon, but PC is making me heavily question that.
It's interesting because I threw that same figure out a couple episodes ago. I said I think year
Yeah,
one it's going to cross 10 million, just
I agree
because
with
of
you.
pre-orders, it breaking pre-order records, the amount of interest on the PC side, the fact that it's multi-platform, the fact that this is a From Software since the release of Bloodborne 3 and Dark Souls 3 and Sekiro has just consistently built this following. It's one of
Yeah,
those series that you see people go back to who've never played it every single year. And
yep.
so there's a lot of interesting data that shows there is a lot of momentum and interest in Elden Ring. So opening weekend will be tough. I agree that it will cross a couple million, but yeah, I think it will be the best selling From Software game by a lot.
No doubt. This game literally, I cover the top 10 best-selling games every single week on Steam. Like every single week I put out the chart of the top 10 best-selling games for the week on Steam. It's usually a great sign if your game enters the top 10 selling games in pre-orders, let's say 1 or maybe 2 weeks before launch. That's like great. That's a sign you're looking at a big launch. Elden Ring has literally been charting for weeks and weeks already. We're talking months before launch because this is going back
Whew.
several weeks. It's been in the top 10. It's close to unheard of for what I've seen on Steam pre-orders. So it's going to do crazy.
Yeah, so circling back to the question about it being in Game Pass, it definitely does not need to be in Game Pass at launch, and have to believe that From Software understands what they have and would ask for an outrageous
It's
amount of
funny.
money. Microsoft would have to come to the table with a humongous sack of money, because again,
Huge.
if we're believing the figures about what Microsoft was paying just to have Elden Ring revealed on their stage, even figures like that, we're talking just to like have a trailer shown on your stage. They were looking at close to $1 million for that.
Yeah.
And that's whew. They Microsoft knows how important Elden Ring is, and From Software knows how important Elden Ring is. So as much as that would be hype, I just don't know. If it happens, that is the biggest thing that Game Pass has done ever. Like if
Oh, not even close. For
like
third party, not
that
counting something like Halo, but yeah,
the
not even close.
headlines that would be in the wild if Elden Ring comes to Game Pass. Whew,
Yeah.
my God,
I could
dude.
I could see it coming to Game Pass potentially within the first year. Like, I could see something like that. But launch, man, that's hard for me to believe. Launch is hard, but I would not be surprised if this goes on Game Pass sometime in the first year. That part wouldn't surprise me.
All right. Well, let's see. Yeah, there's no Dying Light. We haven't gotten confirmation that Crossfire X is coming to Game Pass. Um, there's that big question mark as to what is Xbox offering me in Game Pass in February that's a banger. And
It's especially interesting because the first party lineup for the first half of the year doesn't look super stacked this year.
yeah.
So that does make it even more interesting to see what Game Pass will do over the next few months.
Another super chat from Sergeant Rake here, who says, "Hope you're both well. Do we finally see Xbox fix their busted game DVR and give us some console editing software? Patience has worn thin. Patience has worn thin, Sergeant Rake. Let me
Yes,
tell you, I have to reset my GD console every time I want to upload a clip to Twitter. It's outrageous. It is so dumb
terrible.
that every time I try to trim a clip in on my Xbox console, that it just locks in place, has a gray screen, and I literally have to do a console restart to be able to trim and edit a clip to Twitter. And
Yep.
it's a really bad sign when Nintendo is a much more streamlined and consistent experience than your platform. And
Yep.
Nintendo, I can hit record while the program is open. I can quickly go over to my library. I can trim that clip seamlessly. It doesn't stutter. It doesn't buffer. It's a really seamless experience, and I can upload that to Twitter in about 10 seconds. Xbox, oh my god, dude. Oh
It
my
is bad.
god. It's and they've addressed it. Like Jason Ronald has come out and talked about it. It is a priority for them. And with them using kind of the previous architecture, I think they really need to spend a lot of time reworking the entire process for their game DVR. And I know that's a lot of work, so I don't want to kind of discredit what they've been doing and the improvements that they've made, but please, please. It bums me out that Xbox has the worst DVR between PlayStation, Nintendo, and Xbox.
Yeah, and
That's
one
a
other thing
problem.
that one other thing that drives me nuts about it too is how Xbox like will auto delete your screenshots after a certain amount. Like it'll let you store like so many locally, but unless you upload it to Xbox Live or upload it to like OneDrive, eventually it'll just start removing them off your Xbox. That to me is like super weird. I don't like that at all. Like I have games on my PlayStation from launch day that are still just on there. I don't know why. I've heard it has to do with like a memory thing, like the way that they work the memory in it. Like it'll only store locally for so long or like so many screenshots. But I've lost screenshots before because I didn't realize it was going to do that, and I've gone back to look for them and they're just gone. And I'm like, dude, what? Why would you
No.
remove my screenshot? Yeah. Because I
Yeah,
like to take screenshots. I'm like one of those guys when I'm playing games. I'm like Shinobi. I'm constantly snapping screenshots of games I'm playing. So
yeah, exactly. Yeah. I'm the same way. It's kind of like, the people on Instagram who take a bunch of selfies and half the people go, I don't care about this. And the other half like it. That's like the same thing with video games. I take all this time to line up my shot. Even if there isn't like a photo mode, I turn the HUD off to get a nice
yeah,
kind of
spin
clean
the
shot.
camera to where your
Yeah.
person's invisible.
Yeah. Come on. Put some time in that. All right, Xbox.
yeah.
Harjeet Chani with another super chat here says, how long before we see the difference with ABK after the acquisition? Maybe 2025, 2026? I know we'll expect immediately, but don't think that's realistic. But yeah, that's an interesting point. How long do you think it'll take because right now they're completely autonomous. Activision Blizzard King, as much as we want Xbox to step in and make changes immediately, they are still acting 100% autonomously right now. Once the deal closes, how long do you think it'll take before we start seeing some noticeable changes to their culture and the way they kind of present themselves to the world?
I suspect, let's assume this just gets done in early 2023. We actually still don't know exactly when this deal is going to get completely finalized. You see a lot of people throw around June 2023. It's just it'll be done by June 2023. So it actually could be done before that. It just depends on how everything goes here. So let's just assume this gets finalized and completely done by sometime early 2023. I suspect that you'll start to see the major payoffs and fruits of this probably 2025. Because even if you look at like Bethesda, that closed, last year, and we still haven't gotten to the point yet where it's like fully 100% integrated. The Bethesda exclusives are launching. That's just starting at the end of this year with Starfield. So I suspect you'll see the big, whether it's culture changes, the exclusive games start hitting. You might start to see a little bit of that in like, let's say 2024, but I would say everything firing probably like 2025.
Yeah, I imagine they are actively making plans right now for once this deal closes to be able to come out like as soon as the deal closes and say, these are the things that are changing. So
Yep.
obviously those will take time, but I imagine that with all of the controversy, with everything going on, that they will have an action plan ready to share day one. The deal is closed. We are going to sit down and tell you what this means, how things are going to change. And then, yeah,
Yeah.
like you said, it'll probably take some time to kind of integrate those changes, but I have to imagine Xbox is ready and has an action plan that they will announce to the world to let people know that, it will take time, but changes are happening. Changes will be
Yeah.
made, and this is what you can expect.
And one thing I'm excited for, I think I saw someone post this. I think Larry, Major Nelson said that they're going to do another roundtable with Activision like they did with
Yeah.
Bethesda is the current plan. Very
Mhm.
excited to see that. I loved the Bethesda roundtable. So I'm really excited to see what they do with the Activision Blizzard one too.
Yeah, the Bethesda one was so good. It was one of the
I loved
most
it.
authentic
Yep.
like moments in gaming. Like seeing
Yeah, I
basically
loved
what
it.
felt like all of these friends sitting around laughing together about what this means for games and just like sharing this genuine passion. It didn't feel forced. It didn't feel like a just marketing thing for the sake of marketing. It felt like a bunch of people who have a long relationship get to, take it to the next level, if you will. One more super chat from Harjeet Chani before we move on to the next topic here. Harjeet's set. Harjeet's running the numbers on Elden Ring coming to Game Pass here, Benji. Uh,
Okay.
so just playing with the numbers, 10 million sales at retail, they'd get like 400 million. If Microsoft writes a check for 50 to 100 million, they could get it in Game Pass. All right, so just for fun here, if you're from software and you're humoring the idea of putting Elden Ring into Game Pass day one, how much are you asking?
Definitely tens of millions. Definitely tens of millions. How high do you go? I don't know that you would go up to like 100 million. That's when you're starting to talk like acquisition type things. um, from would actually probably cost more than that. But I'm saying you could buy studios for $100 million for sure. Um, Tens of millions, you'd have to offer tens of millions of dollars. The exact number, I'm not 100% sure, but it's going to cost a lot of money. Especially, here's what I'll say too. The thing is that you have to also factor is going to be, I would think if you make a deal like this, you would get it on console Game Pass and PC Game Pass. You're not going to sign a deal this big and just say, hey, it's only the console Game Pass subscribers that get it, because PC ones would be very angry about that, because we have seen some games in the past where it's weirdly just been a console Game Pass title, but not on the PC side. Not
Mm-hmm.
many, but there have been a few of those. You could not do that with this game. The PC audience would get very angry. So tens of millions of dollars. Yeah, plural, multiple tens of millions of dollars. It would cost a fortune. And put it this way, you could fund an entire game's development probably for what it would cost to get that as day one on Game Pass. I won't
Absolutely.
rule it out. You never know. Microsoft just spent 70 billion on Activision, so you can't rule it out. But yeah, it would be expensive.
It would be expensive. I would say it would be like a $500 million deal. Like,
Ooh,
like
you would
that.
go up into the
Like
hundreds.
that's the level that this would
Not
because
impossible.
because it
Not impossible.
it doesn't need to be in Game Pass. Like the game is going to
Yep.
sell gangbusters outside of it. So if Microsoft did this, this would be a marketing thing. This is
Break the bank
what
kind of
we
thing.
can do for Game Pass. This is why like not only should you be excited about first party games in Xbox Game Pass, you should be excited about some of the biggest the some of let me stress some of the biggest possible launches could come to Xbox Game Pass, and that would create a ton of buzz for the subscription service.
Yeah.
Um, so again, yeah, you could fund an entire game's development with what this would take. And will they do it? I don't know, but I think that, like I said, Microsoft understands what From has, and From understands what they have, and I think it would be a humongous number if it
That would be
happened.
big.
So that's where I'm at. I would, if I'm From, that's what I'm asking for. Like, you want this? 500 million.
Dang, that would be pretty high. That'd be higher than like the Grand Theft Auto DLCs cost Sony. So it'd be a lot.
Mm-hmm. Flex it, all right? From Software, get that
Flex.
bag,
Chase the bag for sure.
Chase the bag. All right, let's talk about another game that has kind of percolated this
Mm.
week, thanks to some developments from our good pals Jeff Grubb and Jez Corden, who've talked about a new exclusive potentially being published by Xbox Game Studios Publishing. And that is coming from a Halo kind of co-development studio, Certain Affinity, who reportedly is working on a Monster Hunter like for Xbox. So I gotta talk to you about this, because much like Blizzard, we don't really know much about the game. We just know that Certain Affinity is developing a Monster Hunter like, and that Xbox Game Studios Publishing is trying to publish it. That's pretty much all we know. That being said, what does this do for you? Does the possibility of a Monster Hunter style Xbox exclusive move the needle for you, Ben?
Yeah, so this is really smart, to be honest with you. Whenever I saw this, I was like, such a smart move, because Monster Hunter World and Monster Hunter Rise really elevated the genre in the West. Prior to World, Monster Hunter was really a fairly niche franchise in the West. It's been huge in Japan for, I mean, years and years and years. It's been a giant, colossal success there for a long time. But these games would come out in the West and they'd sell, you'd be lucky if you got maybe like close to 1 million in the West, right? That'd be a
Hmm.
great result. You got 1 million in the West. Wow, it's incredible. Now we're seeing with Monster Hunter World, it's the best-selling Capcom game of all time. Literally, think of
Yeah.
all of the games Capcom's ever released, all of them throughout history, all the Resident Evils, go down the list. Monster Hunter World is the best-selling one ever. So clearly, that whole genre has gotten a huge boost from this, and there's not a whole lot of games that emulate Monster Hunter. There might be a few that have like light Monster Hunter elements, but there's not many games that are really that it feels like a Monster Hunter game. So this is super smart to fund this, very, very smart to lock it in as an exclusive. And we've also seen that these co-op games do huge numbers on Game Pass.
Hmm.
Whether it's, Back for Blood, Rainbow Six Extraction, that game, I'll be honest, felt like it had almost zero hype to me, and
Yeah.
yet it did 3 million players in its first week. And there's no doubt that Game Pass was a huge driver of that. So it makes a lot of sense to get more co-op games on Game Pass, and this genre feels ripe for growth. So yeah, I think it's really smart.
Yeah, a lot of people forget that Monster Hunter World was revealed on an Xbox stage. And I remember at the time being absolutely shocked. I saw the gameplay and it was kind of cryptic. Like it was this huge departure from traditional Monster Hunter.
Mm,
So you didn't really know what it was. And then as soon as the big monster comes out, you see that Xbox is revealing this kind of reboot of Monster Hunter World. And that was incredibly exciting. Like I've played the franchise on handheld, I've played it on Nintendo, and playing Monster Hunter World on Xbox for me was such a big deal. And I put so much time into that. So, like you said, there are some competitors in the space. I think Dauntless is the big comparison. I don't love Dauntless though. It's not a bad game. It's just for me did not fill the Monster Hunter kind of void in the way that I wanted to as a worthwhile, option in my eyes. So the
right.
possibility of Xbox really spending some time and allocating some resources to do something in that space, put a fresh spin on it. That to me is really exciting. Special Nick from Xbox era, he put out a tweet, just a speculative tweet, an interesting question. And I guess I'll pose that to you. He said, "What if certain Xbox is publishing this Monster Hunter like because they fear that PlayStation is going to buy Capcom? Do you think there's any world where the reason that this game is greenlit is because they want to have some kind of Monster Hunter like when Sony inevitably buys Capcom?"
I don't think that had anything to do with this is a guess, but I don't think specifically it had anything to do with that sort of scenario. My guess is just Microsoft sees how successful co-op games are on Game Pass, and they've seen how big Monster Hunter can be, and they probably just saw this as a nice opportunity to get a game like this. I will say, just to randomly, throw out off of the overall question, I do expect Sony to make some huge acquisitions soon in the next year. I do think that is going to happen. Now, is it going to be Capcom or Square Enix like everyone keeps saying? I don't know about that.
Yeah.
But without going too into detail, I will just say there are some very strong signs from within Sony that they are looking for some big buys. So there is going to be some more acquisitions coming from Sony. So, if that's going to be Capcom, Square Enix, I don't know about all that, but yeah, I mean, you can't rule it out. You cannot rule it out right now. You really can't rule it out. Sony has the money. You see people say Sony has no money. They don't have hardly any money compared to Microsoft because Microsoft's such a juggernaut. But they have enough money to buy Capcom if they wanted to. Yeah, they absolutely could.
Yeah, it's one of those things where I don't think Xbox has any interest in, making a game just to make a game. And
Yeah.
we don't have a lot of details on what this is. So I've seen a lot of people call it a Monster Hunter clone. I think realistically, Monster Hunter is just the easiest comparison we have right now based on the details. So people are kind
Yeah.
of running with that. Um, I have to believe that this team is doing something different and special, and Xbox sees the value of putting in an Xbox Game Pass. So I
Hmm.
think for now, we probably shouldn't be calling it a Monster Hunter clone per se, and I don't think that Microsoft would be running out just to fill gaps just for the sake of filling gaps. They've, like we
Yeah.
saw and have heard with Contraband, they're looking at cool projects that are doing something different that they see will add value to Xbox Game Pass. And just simply doing a Monster Hunter clone, quote unquote, I don't think really adds the value to Game Pass. Because like I mentioned with Dauntless, I would call a Monster Hunter clone, but it doesn't do it. It
Yeah, and I'm curious. I bet this has some sort of unique spin. You know, whether it's is it going to look just like Monster Hunter in that it's like this like fantasy thing, or is it going to mix some sci-fi elements with the fantasy? I'm really curious to see like what the tone of it is.
I'm seeing some people in the chat talk about Scalebound, and it's I've already memed on this a bunch, but yeah, no,
Oh,
I don't think it's
Scalebound.
Scalebound. I don't think it's going to be like Scalebound. I hope it's not like Scalebound, and I hope we can all just move past Scalebound in our lives, for your own mental health. But you know, again, I always talk about the Phantom Dust reboot and how I think that should come back, and it might and probably never will come back. So I guess who am I to say what you should kind of promote? So whatever, yeah, Scalebound, sure, let's go.
There you go. I don't
Scalebound
know. I
is
think that
happening.
relationship ended pretty bad on Scalebound, so I'll be surprised if we see that ever happen.
It was an interesting idea, and they overhyped it because what did they say? There was like marketing surrounding it where somebody said this is like potential to be like a game of all time. Like that quote was said by somebody from Xbox, and I'm like, wow, that's
Yeah.
that's a risky move. And then it's a game that's lost to time. Am I right?
Yeah,
Soof.
yeah. I mean, I would have loved to have seen it, but I just can't ever see Scalebound coming back.
Yeah, I honestly, I was excited after that first reveal trailer, and then the second trailer that showed the kind of weird co-op mechanic, like the co-op boss fight. Like that to me was interesting. I was excited to see where that would go. Um, but again, it sounds like yeah, Platinum overpromised, couldn't deliver. The timeline was just getting further and further out, and it was kind of in a period where Microsoft was not investing heavily. Like if that game was maybe in development now,
Yeah,
like there might have been a world where Xbox said, "Okay, we're going to put one of our teams on to support with this, and we're going to
yeah,
give you the extra time you need." But for Microsoft and Xbox at that period of time, like Phantom Dust, the Phantom Dust
yep,
game had a prototype. You can go watch gameplay for it. The team was asking for more resources because they wanted to do, a campaign. They
yeah,
they they were tasked with basically pitching a multiplayer only Phantom Dust, and they had a multiplayer component, but they also allocated some of those resources. Reportedly, again, I don't know that this is 100% confirmed. This is just kind of speculation regarding the project that they had uh, ambitions for a campaign, and then they showed the campaign section as well, and they said, "No, that's not what we want, and we're not going to
yeah,
give you any more money, so we're shutting it down." And
yeah.
I don't think that Microsoft exists anymore.
I
But it
agree.
sucks that those two projects kind of fell into, came into existence during that time when Microsoft wasn't willing to take any risks, really.
Yeah.
I'm gonna
Oh,
get to. Sorry, go ahead.
oh, I was just gonna say, yeah. The other thing with this too is it just highlights to me how many projects are in the works for Xbox. It's unbelievable. Whether it's from the first party side, like directly first party studios themselves, whether it's through the partnerships that we're seeing, with Xbox publishing, like on this Monster Hunter like game, the amount of games in the works for Xbox is staggering. It's like hard to keep track of it. And I responded to Jez on one of his tweets, and I was like, one of the most interesting questions for me in the next couple of years is how Microsoft goes around revealing all of these games. There's way too much for just one big E3 show. Like they're gonna have to have multiple showcases, it feels like, per year.
Yeah, like a lot of people look at Nintendo Direct as kind of the gold standard of how to present, you know, to your audience. They're tight. They used to be on a somewhat regular cadence. Now it's kind of all over the place. But
Yeah.
I would love to see Xbox lean into that kind of format and say, every few months, we're like, all right, here's a look at Redfall. Here's a look at what's coming up, as opposed to
Mhm.
waiting for that big kind of E3 dump. Because, like you said, that doesn't work anymore. Like their cadence
Oh,
of putting out a big game every few months and the amount of projects that they have in the works, you can't show like 50 games all at
right.
just one big dump every year. Like
Is it gonna
that's
be a 5-hour showcase?
The
Here's our
Xbox and Bethesda
5-hour showcase.
Activision, yeah, just tune in. It's gonna be like the Game Awards where you're just like, all right, dude, I get it, but I can't sit here for 4 hours and watch this. I'm sorry.
Yeah, yeah.
A couple super chats here. Lord Neater says, I don't have the problems you are saying. I record a 30-minute Doom 4K 60 SDR on USB 3.0 stick. And you show me, regarding the game DVR. So, yes, I'm recording on my storage expansion card on my Series X. It is specifically where I'm recording videos, and that's where I'm having my problems. I have heard that if you connect a separate device through USB and have it only work as a device dedicated for video, that it is more streamlined. I just don't. I think that is outrageous to expect your customers to do, quite frankly,
Yeah, most people ain't doing that.
because nobody else plays. You don't have to do that on PlayStation. You don't have to do that on Nintendo. So again, I get that that is a way to get around that. I just don't want to do it, and I'm not going to do it.
And I
Cater
think
to me, god
Microsoft
damn it!
knows.
All right.
I think Microsoft knows. I've seen their people, tweet about it and stuff that they know DVR is a problem, so
Mhm.
they'll fix it. I think. Now, when? Who knows?
Yeah, they said it is a huge priority for them in 2022. When Jason Ronald was on Iron Lords, shout out to him and that team.
Shout out to the Iron Lords podcast.
Absolutely amazing
Great guys.
crew. It is a priority, and it's something that they are able to hopefully fix this year. And again, they have made some improvements. I remember when the Series X first launched, you could not even record in HDR. It was just
Oh
completely
yeah.
washed out. I had
Yep.
clips not recording with any audio whatsoever. So there have been improvements, definitely worth
Yeah.
noting that. Kind of frustrating that it shipped in a state where that happened, but it is what it is.
Yep.
Mr. Joanna Dark, super chat here says, shout out to the GOAT, Miles Dompier. Also, check out the best horror podcast with Fear on Tap.
Boom.
Also, hello and welcome back, Benji-Sales.
Thank you so much. Loving being back.
All right, we gotta. Okay, it's not an Xbox podcast in the year 2022 unless we take some time to talk about Call of Duty exclusivity. Because this, like Starfield, this will be a conversation we're having for months and months and months, and maybe upwards of an entire year here. And
Yeah.
so after the acquisition announcement, there was a lot of speculation on the future of Call of Duty as an exclusive for Xbox. Some people were saying that yes, once this deal closes, this will 100% be an exclusive on Xbox and PC. And then you have people on the other side saying, no way, this will be multi-platform in perpetuity. We got a new report from Jason Schreier over at Bloomberg that kind of shed some light on when we might expect to see the possibility, at least, of a Call of Duty exclusive for Xbox. So this report states that the next 3 Call of Duty games are basically, the deal's done. The contract is signed, and those will be multi-platform. So this is going to be a new take on Modern Warfare, as well as a new iteration of Warzone, and then one other title that will be coming to 4 and 5, probably PlayStation 5 only, pretty quick. Another part of this states that he is speculating that potentially this will go through 2024. So beyond 2024 is kind of what we're looking at for what's up in the air. And this report basically states that that is the only thing that is solidified right now. The next 3 will be multi-plat, and from there, it is basically all up in the air. So Benji, what I want to know from you, because I've talked about this with other folks, is do you see a world where Call of Duty is multi-platform only on Xbox and PC? And what would that look like?
I've been a complete flip flopper on this topic. Like
It's
I
an
have,
interesting one. It's an
I
interesting
have
conversation.
changed. I have changed what I thought's going to happen like 3 times in the last week. So like, first Jeff Keighley sends out a tweet asking like right after the news broke. He was like, "Do you think it's going to be an exclusive or whatever?" And my reply to him is, I'm like, "Yeah, I think that actually, Warzone will remain multi-platform, but eventually Call of Duty is going to go Xbox and PC only." Then Phil came out with his statement, and which I know had some vague elements, but it was
Yes.
pretty like upfront. He never sent out a tweet like that about Elder Scrolls, for example. So I was like, huh, like the fact that he's like outright saying PlayStation and Call of Duty in a tweet is very interesting. So I was like, oh, maybe it really is going to stay fully multi-platform, even though I know there was some vagueness there where he was talking about honoring, the deals and stuff. So I was like, the fact he went out of his way to tweet about PlayStation and Call of Duty makes me think that it is going to remain multi-platform. Then Jason's article comes out, and he says that it's like up in the air still what's going to happen after the current deal. So now I'm back to like, dude, I don't know where this is going to go. So if I had to guess today, and keep in mind, I may completely change my mind tomorrow. After Jason's, I'm back to thinking this might really go console, Xbox, and PC only after we see, the next three Call of Duties. It was always going to be that this year's Call of Duty 2022 was going to be multi-platform. There's just zero question because the deal is not even going to be finalized. And then it always made sense that Call of Duty 2023 was going to also appear on PlayStation because right now Activision Blizzard has to run their company like they're going to remain independent theoretically because Microsoft has no legal say on anything about them until that deal's closed. So you
Exactly.
can't you can't really just assume it's going to go through and only develop for one platform. And what if something crazy happens and it falls out and all of a sudden, wow, well, we haven't even developed the PlayStation version of the 2023 Call of Duty. So it always made sense that 2022 and 2023 specifically would be multi-platform. The real wild card here for me that I did not expect is that Warzone 2 is even a thing. I didn't see that coming.
Yeah.
It makes sense kind of now, in terms of like leaving the last gen hardware behind and having one just like strictly made for this generation for current consoles. So I actually kind of get it now, but that was a wild card for me. If I had to guess today, my guess is that 2024 we might see the first Xbox and PC only Call of Duty, but I have no faith in that prediction whatsoever.
Yeah, it's been a roller coaster in terms of
Yeah,
kind of the speculation online, the conversations, which way people are leaning with all of this. And I think Jason Schreier's reporting kind of confirms what a lot of folks were speculating in the sense that because of this annual Call of Duty machine, a lot of these deals are probably already signed. Like they're
yeah.
forward thinking. The Warzone 2, like you mentioned, is an interesting wrinkle because I've
Mm,
kind of maintained that I think Warzone, no matter what, will always serve as the platform for Call of Duty. So that will remain multi-platform on everything
yeah,
that Warzone exists on. That will keep going, and they'll use that as the kind of like quote unquote Fortnite Call of Duty platform. So that'll
yeah.
still be a way to generate a ton of revenue because Warzone's huge. Warzone makes a
Huge.
ton of money. People play that everywhere. So I think,
Bigger than regular Call of Duty now.
yeah, like Minecraft, Xbox understands that there is an audience and they don't want to like necessarily take away from that audience. So that I think will always exist. In terms of the future of Call of Duty campaigns, your zombies, the other experiences, I do believe that once this contract closes, that those will be tied to, Xbox and PC. Again, I am very confident that annual Call of Duties will be dead. Once this deal
Agree.
closes, there will no longer be annual Call of Duties.
100%.
And I do think that Xbox wants to leverage Game Pass when it comes to those big Call of Duty experiences. So again, people love zombies. It would be cool if, every couple of years they're like, boom, Call of Duty Zombies here. Here's the new one. Here's the new Call of Duty campaign, and it makes it more of like this cool episodic thing. And I think that serves as a better vessel for Game Pass, honestly, because you don't have to worry about, is the Call of Duty campaign going to sell X number of copies?
Yeah.
Is zombies going to be enough to drive? Do we have to have multiplayer, we have to have campaign, we have to have zombies, we have to have all these microtransactions, we have to like do all these things every single year to make sure it makes enough money. And I think Game Pass will ease that burden and make it so when there is a new Call of Duty experience, it is something cool and exciting, and it won't have to be, we need to think of something next year. What's our hook next year? What's the hook the year after that? How do we keep this machine churning out Call of Duties?
Yeah.
So for me, I'm excited about that, but it is
Yep.
kind of tough to say definitively either way, that it will or won't be exclusive in some capacity.
Yeah,
Um,
yearly Call of Duty just does not make sense anymore at under any circumstance.
no.
It made sense under Activision Blizzard because literally their entire financials were built on Call of Duty being there every single year. So if you're from Activision Blizzard's perspective and you're a company that's trying to grow, because let's be real, with investors, it's always about growth. That's the end all be all. Is your company growing or is it not growing? So it made sense from their perspective why they had to just grind out a Call of Duty every single year because it was such a big part of their financials. Within Xbox and Microsoft, that becomes a way less important scenario. And in fact, what you can do is start to pull some of those teams off of Call of Duty and give you more games and more genres, which is a better thing for Game Pass in the long run, having a bigger library. So my total guess is Call of Duty goes into biannual, like every 2 years there's a new Call of Duty. I think that would make sense. But we saw the point with Activision. Keep in mind, it used to be like Infinity Ward and Treyarch made Call of Duty.
Yep.
Then eventually that wasn't enough, so they had to put Sledgehammer in there.
Yep.
Then eventually that wasn't enough, so we're gonna put Raven in there. Then that's not enough, so here comes Toys for Bob, and here comes this company, and here comes that. And eventually we got to the point where with Vanguard, quite literally every single Activision team was making Call of Duty. That's just unsustainable, I think, in the long run. So I agree. I think yearly Call of Duty's dead. It probably goes to maybe every 2 years, and then yeah, I won't be surprised now if the non-Warzone Call of Duties go Xbox and PC only. It would not surprise me.
Xbox has done a really good job making platforms out of its biggest titles. We look at Sea of Thieves. In a traditional model, we'd need a Sea of Thieves 2 every couple of years. We need a
Yeah.
Sea of Thieves 3. But that game continues to grow. They hit 25 million players this last year. That game just gets
Yep.
bigger and bigger every single year. And I think Xbox understands that, if we keep doing interesting things and we keep pulling people back into the game, we don't have to rely on the old school method of having a sequel every year. I've had
Hmm.
some people on Twitter mention that, if you don't do a Call of Duty every year, that the audience there won't be a retention. The franchise will die. People want the annual Call of Duty every single year, and I don't know that that's true. If you're
Yeah, I don't
iterating
think
on the
so.
game, you're adding new components every year. Do you need it?
No.
We look
New
at
new con
Fortnite. Like, Fortnite's not putting out Fortnite 2 every year.
Yeah. Yep. New content, you need new content every year, absolutely. But that doesn't have to be a whole new game. You can release new modes for the current Call of Duty. You can release, new maps for the current Call of Duty. So as long as you have new content hitting every year, you're totally fine. You don't have to put out a brand new AAA Call of Duty every single year.
I'm on the exact same page, and I'm glad because there's so many developers. Like, you look at Bungie with Destiny. Bungie did not want to make Destiny 2. Like, they were poised to, grow and evolve Destiny, and because of Activision being Activision and understanding like the financial prospects of sequels, they were forced to make
Yep.
Destiny 2, and now they're in this weird place where Destiny 2 instead of Destiny is the platform now. Destiny 2 is there's never going to be a Destiny 3 per se. Like, this is just the evolving platform as it is.
Yeah.
Um and it's really weird. So again,
Yep.
I think looking at Call of Duty being every single year is a very old school way of looking at development, and I'm glad to see that we're shifting away from that and people are understanding that you can add new content without re basically releasing another $60 game every single.
Yeah. Yep. Totally agree.
I'm gonna get to some super chats here. Quick shout out to the 262 people hanging with us on this beautiful Saturday. If you are new to the show, we are live every Saturday at 12 p.m. Eastern Time. If you are digging the show, hit that like button, share it out. If you are listening on podcast services, be sure to follow the show, rate the show, all that great stuff. Huge shout out to the amazing folks supporting the show through super chats here. We got you, Donnie, who says, "Stop ruining my life, Miles." Shuts the door with teen angst. This was a little while ago, so I wonder what this was in regards to. I apologize. I'm just here to probably scalebound. Probably it was probably scaled. Yeah. I'm
Oh
just here to
yeah.
I'm just here to crush dreams.
Probably, you're probably right.
Tune in live for Crush Dreams every Saturday on Xbox Chaturdays. Highlander 001 says, "Hope you're feeling better, Benji. Can we
Mm.
finally get rid of the narrative that games that go day and date in Game Pass are low quality games?" Yeah, is it
Oh
safe to say
yeah.
that that is just dead? And that honestly was in bad faith, I think, the entire time.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that first of all, thank you for asking if I'm feeling better. I definitely am. I would say I'm not quite 100% yet, but I am vastly better than I was at the beginning of this week. So that's definitely a plus. And yeah, that conversation should be completely dead in the water. Like you said, I think most console war stuff in general is in bad faith. It's pretty
Yeah,
rare
yeah.
that I see the console war stuff in good faith. Every once in a while, like every once in a while, there's this stuff where it's like they're warring over it, but you're like, yeah, there's some truth to this.
There's an
Um,
interesting nugget in this mess
yeah,
of
nugget
fighting.
in the mess. But yeah, no, I mean after Forza Horizon 5, after Halo Infinite, after Psychonauts 2, after I mean all of these games are starting to come out of first party Xbox. I think the days of saying Xbox has no games or they're low quality going onto Game Pass should be far, far, far over. Now, is every single game going to be a giant Metacritic success? No, every once in a while you're going to have a game that might miss some sort of expectations. That goes for anyone, Sony,
Yeah.
Nintendo, EA, Activision. But the idea that like in general, if a game goes on Game Pass, the quality must be lower, not at all, not by any means.
No, and I think as Xbox continues to deliver these games that are in the game of the year conversations, they have a potential to be kind of like HBO in the sense that not only do people not associate HBO shows with being bad, they actually associate HBO shows with this kind of standard of quality. So even if it isn't your cup of tea, like HBO series, generally speaking, are highly regarded. And, we use the Netflix comparison a lot. And I think that's where a lot of people look at it and say, well, Netflix has some stinky bad shows. And that's true. That's fair. But if Xbox really kind of curates their portfolio of games and invests the time, they have this opportunity to be, the filet mignon versus the Salisbury steak.
Yeah, 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 for sure. And one
Uh,
thing to go back to the creative affinity thing really quick, I think it was Grub. I don't want to misquote here, but I think it was him that said part of the reason that they were really liking doing this co-op game with this Monster Hunter type game is they don't want to force their own studios to do it like a game like that if they don't want to. And that's awesome to see. Like that's awesome for creativity that they're just letting their teams mostly create what they want. That's awesome.
yeah, Joe Neat was on Major Nelson's podcast recently, and he's been on this show. Amazing dude, very honest, very transparent dude. Had some great conversations with him. He was talking about how, with Xbox, they feel very lucky, like Rare feels very lucky because they get to experiment. And he had this
Mhm.
interesting line where he said it felt like being, you know, funded by the world's wealthiest independent publisher. Like he's like, we get to do our own thing. Like we're pretty autonomous.
That's
Um,
amazing.
and they give us a bunch of money to try new things and take years to kind of prototype games. And so there's a lot of positive sentiment around the approach right now. And that's reassuring to me that Phil, as much as I want him to come in and say, all right, the coalition, you're making Phantom Dust. I want it. Miles wants it. You're doing it. Sorry, get
Do
over
it.
it. I'm glad that that's not the case.
Yeah, yeah.
And I'm glad that these teams are making the projects that they want that they want to make, because the reality is chances are that game is going to be better because of it. If you
Oh yeah.
With anything, we can compare it to anything in our lives. When you do something that you don't want to do and you have to do it, are you giving 100%? Be honest with yourself and me. Are you putting in 100% if you
No.
don't want to do it?
And even if you do, you don't do it for long periods of time. Maybe you put in 100% for a little bit, but you don't do 100% for
You don't put
years.
100% in for 5 years. That's
Yeah,
that's for
exactly.
sure. So yeah, that's definitely exciting. There's also been some rumblings that Certain Affinity is also working on a new multiplayer mode for Halo Infinite as well, because they were a partner studio for the development of Halo Infinite, and there's been a lot
Yep.
of speculation regarding Certain Affinity and what this multiplayer mode is. So I guess kind of while we're on the topic of Certain Affinity here, um, are they making the Halo Battle Royale? Is that
I
what's
think so.
happening? You think so? You think they're
I I think either them or 343 Halo Battle Royale is coming. It's
oh, okay.
absolutely coming. Now, is it going to be strictly just a straight up, Battle Royale clone? I don't know. I think that they'll do their own sorts of twists and spins on it. So maybe it feels quite a bit different than a regular Halo Battle Royale. I can't see any scenario you have a free to play Halo and you just don't ever do that. Um, the reality is even to this day, battle royale is still just such a huge mode to have. Whether you look at Fortnite, whether you look at Apex, whether you look at Warzone, I feel like it's inevitable to have some form of it in Halo. Um, I'm really curious what that's going to be, but I do think it's inevitable. So if it's them making it, or 343 all hands in on it, somebody's going to for sure.
There has to be the big, large scale multiplayer mode, and
Yep.
big team battle is awesome. I love big team battle, but big team battle in this day and age, not big enough. I'm sorry. It's
Yeah.
for the most played games when in the shooter space. They have more players. There's more chaos to it. You have the big world kind of
Hmm.
map.
Yep.
Battle royale as a term is a little bit done to death, and I would hope that they put a really heavy spin on it and make it something that kind
Yeah.
of stands out. Like I loved Warzone. I know not a lot of people loved Warzone in Halo 5, not Call of Duty Warzone. Halo 5, the original Warzone.
Yeah.
I loved that mode because it kind of captured the feeling of the big battle, the epic kind of space military fanfare that you associate with Halo.
Mhm.
And I was kind of bummed that when Halo Infinite launched, we didn't have anything to fill that gap. And I know
Yeah.
there was a problem with the rec packs, and not everyone loved the balance of Warzone. But I'd love to see them kind of go back to that formula, pull out the best parts of it, and give me another big epic Halo battlefield.
Yeah. Yeah, there's going to be some form of something like that. I doubt they just put out, a Fortnite clone or an Apex Legends clone, but some form of, like you're saying, huge map, lots of players, some form of that. It seems inevitable.
Yeah, it has to. They got to do something. And so Certain Affinity seems like they're going to be busy. If they're going to be making a fresh new Call of Duty mode in addition to a Monster Hunter like, Xbox must be very happy with that studio and is willing to give them the resources to go wild. And yeah, let's hope it's something different, because
Mhm.
I think what's been special about Halo throughout its history is it's always found a way to stand out as this experience in the shooter space. And all of its modes, all of its gameplay, its vehicles, everything about Halo has felt distinct, has felt
Mhm.
purposeful, and I don't want to see that get lost in trying to chase the battle royale high, because I don't want it to be like, here's a big map and the bubble shrinks in, and whoa, well, that's wild. There's 100 Spartans. Like I would hope
Mhm.
it's something a little bit more than that. But
Mhm.
I know a lot of
Yep.
people who just want that. They would be happy with
Yeah.
just give me a bubble, put flood on the outside of the bubble, shrinking in, and put it in Halo. Boom, I'm there.
Yeah.
I'd play
Yeah.
it, no questions. I'd be there.
Yeah, my guess is it'll be some sort of hybrid between the two, between like a traditional battle royale, but also something brand new. I can't see it just being a clone, but I do think they will take stuff from battle royale, so something in between.
Yeah, because we saw what attrition, the new mode they added. They introduced that
Yeah,
bubble.
yeah, the
They
bubble
introduced the
coming in. Yep.
shrinking bubble. So they're setting that foundation.
Yeah, 100%.
All right, super chat here from Kid Smooth, who says, "When Xbox and the Activision Blizzard deal closes, do you expect back compat and FPS boost updates?
Ooh.
Also, do you think Xbox should close deals to get COD on Game Pass before the deal officially closes?" So
Ooh.
I know they've kind of talked about, adding, they're done adding new games to the back compat program. It sounds like they've kind of officially tapped out on that. But do you think, just like Bethesda, we see them go back to the wheelhouse and do, FPS boots to a lot of
I think
Activision
so.
games?
I think so. I think they'll want to do something with that library because it's so vast. It's easy to forget now because they've just been a Call of Duty machine for years now. But
Mm-hmm.
if you go back, there was so many different, even on the 360, different Activision published games. I have a feeling they'll do something with that library. It would feel weird to me if they didn't. They know that there's a treasure trove of titles there. So yeah, I do. I think they're going to do something with it, some FPS boosts, some sort of enhancements of some kind. I'd be shocked if they didn't. So yeah, we'll see something like that. I'm almost certain.
Yeah, and I think I've seen a lot of people pull up examples of like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles game, the Transformers game, like a lot of these really cool licensed
Singularity, wasn't that Activision? I loved Singularity.
singular prototype. A lot of
It was
people
like
have
a
been,
BioShock type game,
yeah.
Singularity, I think.
So there's a ton of games in Activision's portfolio that they could add, but I wonder if licensing is just
Yeah, that's a good question.
impossible, especially with the like Transformers, TMNT. I think that stuff's just gone. I think that's just lost to
Yeah.
licensing hell, and we don't get anything there. But yeah, I would love a big, huge batch of like like they did with Bethesda. Boom, here are all these games that are now in Game Pass and
Yep.
FPS boost. Keep those
Yep.
coming. Keep those coming.
And
Uh,
then the other part of his question, I think, was about signing deals before the acquisition's done
oh
to make
yes.
sure that some stuff's exclusive.
So
That'd
they're
be
trying
really
to get
smart.
Call of Duty on Game Pass is what he was asking. Do you think before the deal closes, do you think we'll see 2022's Call of Duty, for example, launch in Game Pass?
I'm going to guess no, and I'm going to guess no for one specific reason in terms of Call of Duty, and I think that's because I doubt the deal with Sony allows it. So Sony, keep in mind, Sony has had marketing rights for Call of Duty since the PlayStation 4 generation,
Mhm.
and there has been some bullet points in their contracts before where they forbid it for to going to other subscription services over set periods of time. And in fact, we've seen Call of Duties go into PlayStation Plus as free games about 2 years after they come out. I my guess is that the current contract that is with the marketing on Sony probably forbids it from going into Game Pass. That would be my assumption, and I'm pretty confident in it. So Microsoft likely cannot buy that contract out unless they give Sony a ton of money. And I don't think Sony would take the money in this case. I'm pretty sure Sony would say, "No, we're marketing Call of Duty on our platform."
Yeah, I
So
think
that specific one, no. Other games, maybe. Maybe you see some other Activision games go into Game Pass before the deal closes because they sign it. I'm just gonna guess no on Call of Duty.
I agree with you there. I think there are, like Phil said, they are going to honor whatever contracts are in place, and I think you're right that there are contracts that say PlayStation has the marketing rights to this, and that means in certain cases that you can't put this in a Game Pass or something that equivalent. So I do think maybe once the deal closes, there might be
Yeah.
more conversations there. And I don't know how far out this goes, but I imagine like this year's Call of Duty in particular is probably
Yep.
the deals are already done. Lord
Yep.
knows if that's, I mean, Vanguard was such a mess. I'm curious to see what Call of Duty is going to look like this year, but we'll have to wait and see. Because again,
This year should be huge. I really think it's gonna be gargantuan because
uh,
it's the Modern Warfare sequel.
that's true. Modern Warfare carries
If
some
it was
weight.
any other Call of Duty, I would be like doubtful, but this particular year should be gargantuan. Call of Duty 2019 was the fastest selling Call of Duty ever still, so it should be huge.
Call of Duty, that money machine. There's a reason they pump one
Yeah.
out a year. There's a
Yeah.
death because again, I talked about this last episode, but for all of our complaints, all of our criticisms, all of our uninterest in Vanguard, still best selling game of last year.
The best selling game of the year. Vanguard
It's
still hit number one.
oh,
It was down a lot, but it was still number one.
still number one. Just
Yep.
absolutely wild. Super chat here from Doovie who says, I think COD should go the Counter Strike route. They can keep adding content, updating, and limited time modes to keep it interesting. Yeah, why not? I think that's kind of
Yep.
what we touched on is you don't have to do the annual release anymore to keep people engaged.
Yep.
All right. Final topic for today's show here. Sea of Thieves. I've mentioned Sea of Thieves several times today. I love Sea of Thieves. We all know that. I talk about it a lot. But we got some cool details on kind of what the future of Sea of Thieves looks like, courtesy of this preview live stream. And they broke down kind of how they're approaching content moving forward. And a huge area of criticism for Sea of Thieves for a lot of players is I like the game, I like the experience, but I don't feel that the story is engaging. Like there isn't a defined campaign, there isn't an overarching narrative that I can follow, and that seems to be changing as Sea of Thieves is moving into an approach that I just can really only compare to Destiny 2. They are going to have monthly story arcs that are connected. So 2 weeks every month there's going to be a what they're calling an adventure, which tells a story about the characters in the world and sets up these new seasons. And so as part of these seasons now, there are going to be overarching stories that culminate into this big grand finale at the end. So you'll be able to work with other pirates to uncover mysteries, and it's going to enrich the world of Sea of Thieves even further. So I don't know if you watched this presentation or if you're up to speed, but are you a avid Sea of Thieves player? Is this something you've dabbled with, or what's your kind of stance on Sea of Thieves right now?
Yeah, so I actually have not been like a big Sea of Thieves player. It's a game that I follow very closely because it's been such a huge success for Microsoft and Rare long term. And since I'm like a data and sales guy, I'm always following that as closely as I can. I played Sea of Thieves back when it very first came out, and it was in that very, let's say, rough state where it had, not a lot of content and stuff. And I thought the world was beautiful. I thought that, it was a really cool concept, but I just couldn't really get into it. And ever since then, like I've periodically installed it and barely messed with it. And it's just, see, I am the kind of person that while I love multiplayer, co-op games for me are, I'm like weird in that it's a bit of a struggle because I don't have many people that I game with. I'm primarily a solo gamer. So competitive's easy for me because I just queue with, whatever it is and get teammates and play online. Co-op games though have always been one that just for me doesn't click as much since I don't have a lot of friends I play with. But actually I saw that they are going to start doing like a lot more story-based content and things like that. And this is actually going to I'm going to try to get into Sea of Thieves this year. This kind of stuff to me is a lot more,
Yeah.
yeah, it gives me, some more stuff to do. So yeah, I'm excited. That I will say, even though I don't play it a ton, Rare has done an absolutely incredible job of turning this game around from where it was at launch to now. I mean, it's huge. It sold over 5 million units on Steam alone. That's not players, that's sales, and that's a game that's in Game Pass and it sold over 5 million units on just Steam. So yeah, shout out to Rare. And this stuff does sound really exciting to me, to be honest.
Yeah, it's one of those things. It's a very polarizing game because it is this always online experience. It hasn't admittedly done a great job being an experience for single players. It's very driven by the crew. They have
Hmm.
worked hard to kind of make it a better experience for solo players, and they've been taking steps to continue that. And they stress that with this latest update, they're adding these things called sea forts, which currently in Sea of Thieves, there's skeleton forts, which are basically this like world kind of raid fight that you do. A bunch of ships converge on one point and fight over the treasure. You cannot do that solo. Like that is not catered to a solo experience. I've done it solo. It's absolutely miserable. It is so hard to do. Um, but these sea forts, they have specifically catered the experience within the sea fort to the size of your crew. So they mentioned that if you are
Hmm.
playing solo, you can go to one of these sea forts and you can do it, and it won't be awful. It won't be a
Hmm.
miserable experience for you. Some of the story elements, like of a pirate's life, some of the way they present story, and those were completely isolated. So it
Hmm.
was not in the open world where anyone can come in and blow up your ship. It was an isolated experience, so you could enjoy the story without being blasted by enemy crews. I'm
Yeah, more stuff
partial.
like that is what I'm hoping to see. Some of
I'm
that type.
partial to the PvP. I know not everyone is. I get it. It's a very cutthroat um
Yeah.
online multiplayer experience in some ways because, some people just want to go online and they just want to grief. And that's the reality. That's
Yep.
human nature. Some people are just they're just bad people, okay? And that's the fundamental flaw of any online game. That being
Mhm.
said, there are some good people on the seas, and I've had some amazing experiences where I'm like at an outpost holding a big old treasure box, and I see this crew pull up to the dock, and I'm like, "Oh, here it goes! I'm getting blasted. I'm getting sunk. All my treasure's gone. Well, it
Mhm.
was a good run." And then these dudes get out, and they're like, "Hey, you need some help?" And I'm like, "What?" And then they
Oh, that's
start
awesome.
carrying my loot to the vendors and dropping it off in front of the vendors so I can just walk up and turn it in. So I've had a
Oh,
lot
that's
of
amazing.
for every bad experience that I've had like 3 or 4 really good, beautiful, memorable experiences. So I understand people's requests for a PvE mode. I really do. But I think there is something kind of special about that dynamic of anything can happen. Good or
Yeah.
bad, anything can happen on the seas, and that's the beauty of it. But I am
Mhm.
really excited about these overarching stories as a way to kind of keep people engaged because the
Yeah.
flaw of their current seasons was there's one big drop, and there are weekly events, there are weekly challenges that you can do, but mostly it's one big drop at the start of the season. I'll play for a couple weeks, and then the last like 2.5 months of the season, I don't play it. I don't
Yeah.
really have a reason. I blast through the plunder pass, get all the rewards in there, and then I move on to something else.
Mhm.
This, with a story beat every pretty much 2 weeks, that's going to keep me coming back because I love the world of Sea of Thieves and I want to see these characters get some time to shine. So I
Yeah.
like that approach. I have some questions because I've publicly talked about Destiny 2's flaws with that ongoing story.
Mm. For a new
because
player, it's, like, impossible to
yeah,
even
you
understand
jump in,
what's
you're like,
happening.
"Who are you? What
Yeah.
is
Where
happening
do
in
I
the"
even go? Yep.
So, there are tall tales that exist as these standalone experiences, and I wonder how these overarching stories are going to kind of fit. Is it gonna be,
Mhm.
like, restarted at every season, or is it gonna be like Destiny where after, like, 4 seasons, you try to jump in and you're just complete the world's on fire, there's a big
Yeah.
raid ship in the distance, and you have no idea what's happening?
Yeah. I'm the type of Destiny player where I play every time a new expansion comes out. Like I play the campaign for the new expansion and everything, but I don't play the like in between story content seasons. And every time I jump in when the next expansion drops, I'm like, what is happening? Like, where even is everything? So hopefully Sea of Thieves does a good balance of figuring out how to onboard people, but still keep, those people that are playing constantly engaged.
Yeah, I hope so too, because I'm the exact same way. I have friends who play Destiny every day. Like, Destiny
Yep,
is
same.
their game. That's not me. I like Destiny. Destiny is fun. I'll play it every couple months, but I
Yep.
took a year and a half off of Destiny 2,
Hmm.
and my friends were like, "Come on, dude, you got to jump in. You got to play with us." I'm like, "I don't want to. I don't want to buy all the expansions. I don't want to try to get caught up. I'm too far gone. Let's just
Yeah, yeah.
let me just move on with my life." Um, they bought me all the Destiny expansions. They wouldn't just let me move on with my life. They bought me
They
all the
forced
Destiny
you.
expansions, and I'm like, "Well, okay, let's do it." And I dove in, and I was so confused. They're
Yeah.
they're trying to like tell me all these lore beats and all these things that happened, and well, this character died, but actually they came back as this character, and that's who this is. So even though you've never met this character before, they're at the outpost as this person, but you don't know that they're dead yet. I'm just like, oh my god,
And
dude,
the
this.
and the problem with Destiny that I hope Sea of Thieves doesn't do is like Destiny will just remove content. So
Yeah,
it's like you can't really get caught up unless you go and read the Wikipedia because you're like, I literally can't play the story missions because they're gone. So like I can't get caught up on what's happening with the plot. So hopefully Sea of Thieves doesn't do that with like these story beats that they're going to drop. Hopefully they find a way to keep them accessible in the game so you can, even if you come in, let's say 6 months from now, experience and know exactly what's going on.
I hope so too. I have a fear that that won't be the case fully,
Yeah.
because like Destiny, it's like you're trying to catch up on a TV show. Like you're
Yeah.
jumping into season 13 of a TV show, but seasons 1 through 11 don't exist.
Yeah, exactly.
Seasons 1 through 11 are erased outside of blog posts where people explain the story beats. That's how you have to
Yep.
enjoy this show, and that's my biggest kind of gripe with Destiny is the fact that
I
they
agree.
do pull that content away, so you can't even get caught up if you want to.
Yep.
Um, and I worry that's what Sea of Thieves is going to be as well, but I hope it's not as because Sea of Thieves, the story's always kind of been like an optional component
Yeah.
to the world. It hasn't been like there has never been a
The
traditional
core.
campaign where
Mm.
Destiny started with a traditional campaign. So I think that's where it hurts more.
Yeah,
Where Sea of
exactly. I
Thieves, you can
agree.
still get in a ship, sail around, blow some stuff up, feel good, move on.
And
You don't
get it. Yeah.
exactly, exactly.
Yep.
So that's going to be it for today's episode of Xbox Chaturdays. Benji, one more time for all the amazing people who've been hanging out with us. Let everyone know where they can get a hold of you.
Yeah, I am Benji-Sales. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. Thanks for being so welcoming. Thanks for an awesome show. Best way to get a hold of me is going to be on Twitter. I'm Benji-Sales on Twitter. I am super active on Twitter. I'm basically always on Twitter. So that's the easiest way to talk to me or interact or whatever. I'm also on YouTube. I'm just Benji-Sales on YouTube as well. I'm less active on YouTube. I do one stream a week. It's a live chat where I basically just get on there for about an hour and a half a week and talk about the gaming industry with everybody. We just talk about whatever the big topics are. It's super interactive. So I do that once a week on YouTube. Otherwise, just hit me up on Twitter, Benji-Sales.
Appreciate you hanging out, dude. Again, it's been too long. It was great to have you back. Obviously, we had some juicy stuff to talk about. For everyone who tuned in, really appreciate you joining us live. If you're listening on audio services, again, really appreciate you tuning into the show. And with all of that, we are going to shut this down, and I will catch you all next week. Have a fantastic week, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.